NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters1932.org.
All right, good evening. Welcome to the Farron Dozier Show on KCAA Radio, 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Also streaming from the KCAA Radio.com website and nbrradio.us. We got to bless the show before we get started. Let's go. When I was in my mother's womb, I had a calling on my life to do something in the glory of God and marry it like a wife. Commit myself to his word and never be led astray. And when it's all over, when he comes, I'll be glad to see that day in the morning time. In the morning time. Welcome to the Farron Dozier Show at the nighttime, 8 p.m. Pacific time, right here on KCAA Radio, the Farron Dozier Show. I want to thank you for tuning and listening in. You know, as always, we have a very, very important, spectacular show for you here. All right, so it's Sunday night. Lots going on, but we just gonna where we gonna start? We're just gonna start right here. Today, you know, having some conversations with myself about myself, towards myself, looking at life from myself, and like, okay, so what's the topic tonight? And shouts out to my daughter Brittany. You know, we were texting as I was sitting outside waiting to come in, and I'm just looking at life. Right? And there are so many things in life that we care about. There's so many things in life that matter to us. And so I know what matters to me. I know what matters to me. But do you know what matters to you? And are you able to even express what matters to you? Right? Can you even articulate what matters to you? And so, you know, this last personal development class that I was in, I was talking to the engineer, Joe, and you know, I'm in this space right now of just like I peeled off this layer, and I went to work at it though. This is what's I'm not surprised, because in this season I was in, I really wanted to experience patience, like calmness. Like no worries, like just like, okay, like I'm cool, like no chaos, like just I'm here, and you know what? My circumstances haven't changed, life hasn't changed, nothing's really changed. It's who I get to be in those circumstances that I thought I had shifted. And that is the space that I'm in currently. I know that space that I just peeled off was in my peer age, right? So in my personal development classes that I take, there are 3 core decisions, you know, that they talk from, and they have distinctions and principles to look from. And it's, I'm on my own, I don't belong, and then there's something wrong here, like here with me here. Not here in the space, but like there's something wrong over here with me. And I know that one of those was my peer age. I knew that one of those 3 was the layer that I was looking at in this last, I don't know, 5 years. Yeah. And it's wild because around each 5-year mark, I've discovered a different layer. Like the first 5 years was my dad. The second 5 years was with my mom. And then this next 5 years I've done was with my peers. And I'm the common denominator in all of those, right? So if I'm the common denominator in my relationship with my mom and with my dad and with my peers, then I got to look at myself first, right? And that's what this work has done. It has allowed me to look at myself first as I look in the areas of life that matter to me. And the first area that really mattered to me was my military career, right? That was why I started taking the classes. I was introduced to the classes because life was over in my mind, and the decisions that I made about who I had to become to survive that uniform being, I want to say taken away, but it wasn't really taken away as my career ended. My military career came to an end. Not by choice, right? But it's not that the military career came to an end. It's what I made it mean about who I was in the military. And that decision that I made was that my life was over. So there's a difference, right? There's a difference in what happened and then what I made it mean. And the conversation that I have with you all for the last 15 years is the meaning that I gave my life. And so I'm sharing with you the meanings that I discovered and that I made up that may not have been the right meaning to make it about myself. Because that's where it starts. I made it mean my life was over when the military said that my career was coming to an end, possibly because of my sickle cell trait exertion and the rhabdo experience and the medications that I was on. So was it the sickle cell trait exertion, or was it because I was on medication that made me non-deployable that I could no longer serve? So you see, as I even right now peel this off live in front of you, as I peel these layers off of these stories, right, because they're all stories, then I could see almost right now, like, you know what, it wasn't even about the sickle cell trait exertion with the rhabdo that ended my career. Could it have been because I was on the medication? Because I couldn't be deployable on medication that I was on. So then there's another layer of peace, because that's just what it was. It was medication. It wasn't my sickle cell trait yet, although that was an episode that happened. And what I made that mean about, of course, I can't play ball no more. I can't exercise no more. That means something to me. And so that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about that tonight. It's Sunday night. You can catch me on the Military Broadcast Radio Network Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. on East Coast. That's the Trench Talk. That's the Farron Dozier Show, Trench Talk edition. Here we have the Farron Dozier Show with some Sports Collective TV and media and radio segments. Not happening tonight. So yeah, let's talk about that. So we're gonna play some PSAs. I got my sickle cell trait awareness. This is my why. This is one of my whys. This is my activity of life, right? My sickle cell trait awareness. This is what I get to do after my military career came to an end, after I almost died from this inherited gene, after I had the rhabdo, so I found a whole nother community of people to serve. So I don't serve the country like I used to in the military category, but I do serve this community. And that is where I found my peace, right? Because we want to be in service, right? Look at the jobs what we take. We take jobs we want to support, we want to help, and we want to serve. That's a natural state of us. And so I found another community that I was born into. 300 million people plus have this inherited gene called sickle cell trait, and many don't know that there are risk factors. So it becomes a real life conversation for me, because I experienced some of those risk factors that I had no idea myself that I could happen, or it actually happened, right? So, being able to share that conversation, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's important, and then I meet someone who discovers their inherited gene, and then they figure out that they've also been having some health complications connected to their sickle cell trait. And then we see athletes, military people exercising have died and passed away from a gene that they didn't know, or the family didn't know, that could cause these kind of health problems. So it is important. But the moment I put Farron in the middle of that is not important because I put me in it, right? Because then I put my opinions about myself. I put Farron in the middle of it. And Farron already lives that life is hard. Farron already lives that he's not good enough and he's not worth it. Because remember, Farron lived for so many years that I don't belong. There's something wrong and I'm on my own. And where else did that show up at? That shows up, guess where else? I saw that. That shows up in the Bible. Our best example was the Israelites. And so we're going to talk about the Israelites and Moses and how they walked 40 years. 40 years they walked in that wilderness with miracles. But yet their hearts were still hardened. And so mine is, my version of that is my story. My version of that Israelite passage is my own story of how I walked in darkness and being lost and being blessed and having miracles, and still my heart was still fractured. And so one aspect, I say that in my other show that, all this talk that I'm doing with you right now that you hear came from that episode of my sickle cell trait exertion. Like, other than that, I was just living life. I was doing what I was doing, being who I was being, producing results, not necessarily saying I was happy. It was more of a responsibility. It was more of a job. But my experience of myself, no. I mean, I drank. I was a big drinker. So what was all of that? We're going to talk about it right here on the Farron Dozier Show. This is my PSA sickle cell trait. This is the early one. This is one of my first PSAs when I was still in the military. So if you're watching the video on this, this is actually me still serving and put on my heart to do a PSA about sickle cell trait and what that looks like from my own experience. This is the Farron Dozier Show. Shout out Southwest Count. Hey, I'm Sergeant First Class Farron Dozier. I'm here at the military base, and I have the sickle cell trait. Now, why I got involved is I experienced what they call sickle cell trait exertion. And I was doing the Army physical fitness test, the 2-mile run, and when I got done, I collapsed. A lot of soldiers and athletes have been dying at football fields and running track, and the family members have no idea that they have the sickle cell trait gene or that it's a trigger. So my purpose is to mobilize the community so we can find out what's in your genes. How will life be if we could prevent another child from being born with sickle cell trait or disease? And if a child was born with the trait or disease, that the family members would have the education, awareness, and resources in every city that they lived in. So tune into our webinar series and find out what's the count. What's the count? What's the count? What's the count? All right, welcome back to the Farron Dozier Show. Check this out right here. This is Flame Captured. Play a little bit of this.
Man, my heart is heavy, man. I feel a lot of pain. It's been a while now since y'all done heard from Flame. It's been a while now. But God has been rocking your boy. But at the same time, I see Satan's plot to destroy. And I know I ain't the only one. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son. It's only one. And Satan tried to knock him too. But when they knocked the nails in his hands, Colossians 2 and 15. But yet I still see a common theme that's plaguing adults and it's plaguing the teens. When Jesus died, he did more than just give us some help. So help me understand why we still living for self. We live for our families, for our money and cause. We live for our happiness cause our pleasure is Lord. But ain't we seen yet that just doesn't work? Living for self can only lead to dozens of hurt. It's true. Please hear my heart. Like a stethoscope. We're taking steps toward death, but looking for hope. Because we were captured by sin. We were seized, now we need to be captured again. That's why we need to pick them scriptures up. Start praying and fasting and ask the Father, forgive us up. Forgive us for laziness. Forgive us, Lord, for our pride. Forgive us for worldliness. Forgive us, cleanse us inside. Cleanse us, Lord, from telling lies. Cleanse us from our...
Back to the Farron Dozier Show on KCAA Radio 106.5 FM, 10:50 a.m., the station that leaves no listener behind. I miss my Christian hip hop talk show. I ain't gonna tell you no lie. That was on GH3, God's House of Hip Hop, powered by. It used to be Dash Radio, then it went to Lit Live, and then just Lit Live just went nuts. I don't know. They just wanted so much from the channel that it didn't make sense anymore. But shouts out to J Love. Shouts out to One Way TK. We held that down for, man, I did that show for. Matter of fact, it started here. Check that out. The Revolution Radio started here when I was here. In 2021, I jumped on that channel with J Love, and then we moved from KCA Radio to Lit Live to Dash. And so there we played, that's where I found, Christian hip hop music and another aspect, and just doing that talk show. So, that was in alignment with who I'm being. So I missed that. I gotta get back on the channel where I can play some music. Yeah. That's a missing piece of my shows, because I have the music marketplace in time, the soundtrack to life, which includes music. Right? So one of my favorite shows, it consists of music, and I'm starting to feel like I'm suppressing that part of my broadcasting because I can't play music because we get blocked. You play the wrong song and they block your YouTube, they block you on Spotify, they block you because you got to pay royalties, which I respect that too, right? So there you have it. That's that part. So tonight we're going to talk about a little bit of, again, just where I'm at. I wonder where you are. I think the artists should definitely get their dues, and I'm not saying that that's not the problem. I'm just saying that there are channels that play royalties, and it's I respect that. So I need to find the channel that we could play royalties. No, you good? I'm good. Yeah, you good. I missed that show. That's actually one of the reasons why if you look at my first show here at KCA Radio in 2021 of March, it was a music talk show. I was on the air at 6 p.m. on Tuesdays. Was that Tuesdays? I think it was, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. I was on the air, 2021 here. And it was music and talk until I played that one Michael Jackson song or I played the one Prince song or somebody I played, and that put me on the radar. And that slowly came to an end. But yeah, so shouts out to GH3, God's Hip Hop, powered by Lit Live. We were there doing the Revolution Radio show, the Christian hip hop talk show, interviewing Christian hip hop artists. So I missed that. I got to add that back to my repertoire. So yeah, so based off of all that stuff, tonight I wanted to just share with you and just kind of get a sense if you're willing to look in your own life around these conversations, right? Because the biggest part of this topic tonight is that the Israelites, they had miracles every day. Like God provided them a miracle every day. And yet their hearts were still hardened. Right? So how is it that, we are being provided for? We have the things that we need, but yet our hearts are still hardened. And if you look at that passage, yes, they were enslaved in Egypt. 400 plus years, it says. Similar to the Black American story or the Black story, that we were slaves for 400 years, right? And so when I look at that passage and I look at Israelites and I look at today and I look at myself and I put myself in that situation of where I was at 15 years ago, and man, my heart was hardened. And if I tell the truth, I was provided. God took care of me. God took care of me, right? So if I believe that God took care of me, and I could look back today and look at my whole entire life, and I could point out where, I had miracles, I had blessings. I had the basic needs that I needed to survive life. It may not have looked like how I wanted it to look. It may not have turned out how I thought it should turn out. It may not have been the sneakers that I wanted to buy when I was little. It may not have been the clothes that I wanted to wear that I couldn't buy because I was a child and I didn't have money. And so my parents bought what they could afford. Right? Then you start to look at all that stuff, right? You start to look at your childhood, how you grew up. And you start to look at, you know what, from another perspective, from another perception. But see, the Israelites didn't really, it doesn't say that they took any time to look back and, well, they did though. Because it says that when they look back and they complain to Moses about why you got us out here in this wilderness walking around and you're talking about all this God stuff is supposed to bless us and take care of us and all these miracles. But man, we could be back in Egypt, man. That's where they went back to like, we could be back in Egypt enslaved, man. We was better off over there. We was enslaved, but at least we had garlic. But God was promising them the land of milk and honey, not just the garlic. So when I look at that passage and I look at, I'm a black male, so I can only speak from the black male experience. If I could even language, I don't even know if that's a good way to language that. See, that's why I do my shows, because sometimes we choose words to describe life that just may not be the way we want to continue to describe life. I'm jumping around here because this is what it looks like when it's layered. Like, yeah, I'm a black male, but I'm a human being first, right? So I can talk about the black experience, or I can talk to you from the human experience. And I believe we'd be more relatable from the human experience, right? Because I can't speak for all black men. I can relate to black men, but I can't speak for them. So I don't like to generalize my conversations either. So when I put myself in the conversation of the Israelites, and I read the scriptures in Exodus, where it starts, and I'm looking at what was written, and I'm looking at what God provided, and I'm looking at the conversations, I'm looking at Moses even, who was frustrated with them. It was like, man, but then you got to look at the context of that too, though. See, what God would do back in those days is he would take people who were enslaved, right, and create a new nation with those people, because he wanted to be an example to show that if you rely on me and not worry about where you came from, then your experience would be different, right? And so a lot of my black culture feel like all of our stuff was taken away from us. Our language was taken away. Our spiritual beliefs was taken away. So now I could do Ancestry.com and I could at least get a sense of where my DNA is from, supposedly. I don't know that to be true. All my DNA came from Nigeria. Nothing from over here. So how's that? I don't know. But yeah, most of my DNA is from Africa, which makes sense where my sickle cell trait came from. But when you look at the conversations of the world today, and when I line up with the biblical context, that's where I look for my peace of mind. I look for my peace in that space of when I experience being complete and whole. So I could either be upset and frustrated because of my ancestors and all the stuff that happened in slavery. I could be mad about that. I surely could be upset. It would make anybody mad. Let's not forget the white-skinned people. So a lot of y'all came here from another country, fleeing from another country for a better opportunity, right? So there's a lot of us that are dealing with a lot of stuff silently. But from my experience, I'm looking at that passage and I'm like, okay, look, they was slaves for 400 years in Egypt. God creates new nations from slaves so that they can depend on him and rely on him with all of the blessings. So they reference back to him and not the land. Like I read that and I understood that. I got comprehension from that. So then if he took a new nation from those slaves and brought them to the wilderness and provided for them for 40 years, the clothes didn't wear out, it says. They were fed food, fell from the sky, and water out of a rock, and healed from a staff. And that, matter of fact, that medical staff, that emblem with the snake, that's from the Bible, and they still use that today. So don't tell me that y'all don't believe in some of the stuff from the Bible. Y'all, we pick and choose what we want to follow in there, but that same staff and that medical logo is the same one that they talk about in the Bible. That's what he threw the staff down and the snake, and boom, and people got healed. So my point is, they had miracles every day, but their hearts were so hardened. But hardened why though? Because they were coming out of Egypt, and their mindset. They're 400 years. How many generations is that? That's a lot of generations. 5, 6 generations. If 40 years is a generation, that's a lot of years that their families were enslaved in Egypt. So that's all they knew. And then here they are in the wilderness, walking around, relying on Moses and God, and they're like, nah, man, this ain't working, bro. This ain't working. So then what? Why did they not just go straight to Canaan? Why did they not have the opportunity to just go straight to Canaan? Well, because look, if they would have went to Canaan, to a new land that they had to fight to take over, and they had to start over brand new, right? That means they had to build everything from scratch. Can you imagine the complaining that would have been going on? They was already complaining in the wilderness. They were already upset in the wilderness. So how can you then go to the promised land of milk and honey when you have Egypt on your mind? When you have Egypt on your heart, you're frustrated. You're not happy. You're upset. You complaining. I gotta build this from scratch, man. We could just stay where we was at. We left. Like, do you understand that? Can you hear that for yourself? And that's what I hear in the world today. I hear that even though that we have these things provided for us, that we still have our hearts upset from the past. And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong or good or bad. I'm not here to say that. I'm saying that just look at what it's doing to you possibly. Because I had to look and see what it was doing to me. It wasn't, it was a different life since the last 15 years. I've had to peel off a lot of stuff. But the biggest part of it is that I was willing to look at it though. And the Israelites, they didn't seem like they were willing to look at that. I mean, I can't even imagine walking around the wilderness and Moses is turning water into a rock so that we can have something to drink, or food is falling from the sky so we can eat, and God is saying, don't take all of it, just take enough to eat right now. But they were still greedy and they were still grabbing food to store because they didn't have that. What is that? They didn't have that. The Bible calls it faith. Bible calls it faith. So I would imagine, how would you have faith if you don't know to have faith when you grew up in an environment that doesn't pull for that? That only pulls for upset and frustration and anger. Like, how can you even think that there's a God that could provide for you regardless of your circumstances? And that to me, that's where the work is at. That's where the work is at. I could be upset about the 400 years. I could deep dive into my DNA and be upset about the slave trades and all the frustrations of my brothers and sisters that my ancestors that went through and all that. I could be that same mind frame. I really could. My dad's dad, that's what the mindset he had. And it's not wrong. But it's not today, though. It's not me today. Like, I'm going to answer prayer from those past experiences. Like, now I'm grandpa. Like, now it's my turn. And how can I move this conversation forward? And that's a different perspective for me today. It's also different because I've had to look at my faith. I had to increase my faith. So when you look at today's life, society, its conversations, and again, you know, where is your heart hardened at? My heart got hardened not because of slavery talks, but it was because of how I thought life should be. And could that be the same thing that they were dealing with? That our perception of life shouldn't be this way. So then you have this whole world of the should and shouldn't world. And it shouldn't be like this, and it should be like this, and it should be like this, and you shouldn't do it this way, and you should do it that way, and why should it be this way? Like, that's enough. That's emotionally exhausting. Are you in the should world? I know what it feels like to be in the should world. The should world it's a trap. But what traps us in the should world? What trapped me in the should world was my language. How I talked was my trap in the should world. My perception trapped me. My memories trapped me. And the actions that I took in life trapped me. So you can't keep doing the same thing thinking that it's going to be different outcome. But is that a layer that we look at, though? We say that. They call it insanity. That's how they language it. But what does that look like in real time? It looks like me protecting myself and using the same strategies to survive these moments, even if it looks like it's about to happen again, that happened to me in the past. Guess what? I'm going to do the same thing I did back then to protect myself, which is going to give me the same experience, which is no wonder my life looks the same every time because I'm the one taking the actions. But did I ever allow that one episode to play all the way through and realize that maybe it wasn't going to turn out like that again? Maybe it was my behavior that shifted that kept that in the same aspect. So I'm looking at, like, do we need miracles? I guess that would be the title of this episode if I had to title it today. Is, do we need miracles? Or are the miracles that we experience the benefits of following Christ? And so, is it a miracle because I didn't expect it? I say I believe it, but I don't really believe it. So when it shows up as a miracle, like, oh man, that's a miracle that happened. Yeah, because I wasn't even expecting that, because I don't even really believe that that could happen. But then we look at benefits. And what are the benefits for following Christ? And so if it's a benefit, then it's not a miracle. Then it's just, these are benefits for me being a child of God. And my behaviors and my character and my personality and my body language are benefits. I experience the benefits. So my question to you is, do we need miracles? I don't know if I would language it as such. I don't know if I would language it as I need miracles. I'm starting to language it as, you know what? By me being a kingdom citizen, hey, these are the benefits. You're a U.S. citizen, right? And so you have particular benefits that you get from being a U.S. citizen, right? Especially if you are able to get a passport. Those are benefits, right? Not everybody can get a passport, even though you were born in the United States. See how, but they put a regulation on that. Not everybody can get a passport to be a U.S. You are born in the United States. You're a citizen, but are you a true citizen when you have done everything you're supposed to be as a citizen and you get a passport? Now, how does that transfer over into the word? Yeah, well, we're a kingdom citizen, so my faith is my passport. Is that a good way to say that? That I have to have my faith? Because that's the only way. My works ain't gonna get me in heaven. My works are not gonna get me close to God. Not the stuff that I do only. My heart posture is. And that's why I'm saying, do I need a miracle to put my heart posture to believe in God? I don't know. That's a tough one. The Israelites didn't. 40 years. That walk to Egypt, out of Egypt, or from the promised land, from the wilderness to the promised land, was like a 20, 30-day walk. But they walked in circles or whatever direction, and for 40 years. I felt like that's how I walked. I didn't get on this journey until I was 40, 39, turning 40. Almost 41 when I took that first class. So I literally challenged the first 40 years of my life. I had to challenge the first 40 years of my life. That was all the way back to a 2-year-old I could remember. How far back can you remember? I've had friends that take these classes that I've taken, and they could remember 2 years old. My buddy Caldwell can remember being cut, having his umbilical cord cut by his mama. He remembers seeing her cut the umbilical cord as a baby out of the womb, fresh out. So have you sat with that? Have you thought about your first 40 years? They say the Bible, 40 years is a generation. 40 years is a change of a generation. See, because in that passage, when they walked that 40 years, and they just, their hearts was just so hardened, and God was just like, he was done with them. But Moses reminded them, like, no, don't do that. So what happened in that passage? That generation died off. So that generation that was out of Egypt, that walked those 40 years, they passed away in the wilderness. But when they passed away, the children that were born in the wilderness, guess what? They weren't born in Egypt. So see, they didn't have the hardened heart of their ancestors. Their hearts weren't hardened about the slavery stuff that their ancestors went through. They were born in the wilderness. And because they were born in the wilderness and they didn't have the hardened heart, they were able to go into the next phase of life with no upset. Now they had to take on, right? They had to have faith and take on what was going to be taking place in Canaan. But they didn't go to Canaan with the upsets of Egypt. You see, do you understand that part? That's the whole part about this 55 minutes I want you to catch. That the next generation that were born in the wilderness, their hearts were not hardened from the experiences of being in Egypt, like their ancestors. So my heart is not hardened about the conversation about slavery. My heart is not hardened in the conversation about what happened to black people in the past. My heart is not hardened. It could be, though. It could be, but it's not. It's hardened from some other stuff. It's not hardened from my ancestors and what happened to them in slavery. I wasn't there. I wasn't born then. I have no idea what they went through. I have no idea of what they went through. And so I get to be okay with that. I get to look at it from Farron's perspective, from Farron's perception. My heart's not hardened from that conversation, but I know some of my family members and my friends are. I know that people still live from that upset. There's some people that still live from the Jim Crow era upset. So can you imagine having the slavery of 400 years plus upset and then an extra 100 years of Jim Crow era frustration? Now that's more current to me than it is slavery. I could stand with the upset of the Jim Crow era, even though I wasn't born. But even that doesn't influence my frame of mind. But there are some, I believe, that still that Jim Crow era, that extra 100 years, that was a huge fracture, because that's kind of recent for some people still. Some of our adults in their 70s and 80s were children in that time of that Jim Crow era. If Caldwell is 91 and his family, mom and dad, was first generation free slaves in Texas, he came through that Jim Crow era. But I'm not upset with that era either. But my question is, what has hardened your heart? Sometimes our own family members, our own perception of our childhood hardens our heart. Not even the world conversations about slavery and Jim Crow era. Sometimes the environment that we grew up in, the gang-infested environment that we grew up in, hardens our heart. And how does that affect us today? How does that affect us in San Bernardino County? I think it does. And I truly believe that for those that are willing to look at that conversation from another perspective, from a different perception, challenge your views about how you grew up. It's the same story in the passage of Moses and the Israelites. And I see, and this is not right or wrong, this is just Farron. It's Christmas time. I see people, we want to give toys, and we're giving stuff. We're giving stuff and stuff and give stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff. It's all about the stuff. And that's not right or wrong, good or bad. I really don't have a problem with that. But is that stuff softening the hearts of our people? Is that stuff healing our community? And I don't know. I look at my grandson and I'm like, that dude got a bunch of toys, but it ain't softened his heart. It softens his heart when he wants a new toy. Oh, he want to act right then. He wants to behave then when he wants a new toy. But what skills can I give him as his grandfather to soften his heart as a person? That the stuff is not important. And so as I look in the world today, this holiday season, and I just look at everybody's giving their stuff away. Bikes and toys, and like I said, I'm not against that. But I want to bring something different. I want to bring skills. I want to bring conversations. I want to bring subjects that's going to make a difference in the people's life experience. And I believe that that's the difference. And again, there's nothing wrong with giving away toys and something like that. That's not I'm saying is right or wrong. I'm saying that we give a lot of stuff away. But let's give away some skills. Who wants to join me in giving away some life skills, some foundation skills that can alter our culture, that could alter our city, that could alter our county? Miracles? I don't know. I don't think we need miracles. I don't think miracles softens a person's heart. I believe that the person has to be willing to look in their own life with some skills to want to soften their own heart. I do believe that we can make those corrections early on in age. I don't think we have to leave it to chance. I don't believe we have to leave it to chance that hopefully one day the person changes their life. Or they have to go to jail first to change their life. Or have to be in a near-death situation to change their life, or a car accident, or like me. Like mine was my sickle cell trait. That was rock bottom. I almost died. But then it's not for me to say that that's not the journey for you either. I'm saying that in this midst of your journey, get the skills. Develop yourself at the same time. Don't wait until you get into a situation to try to figure out who you need to be to survive that moment. I'm saying learn the skills today so when that situation happens, that you know who you need to become. See, we focus on what we got to do. Well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I don't know. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, man? What are you going to do? My question is, who are you going to be first? Are you going to be upset and frustrated? Or are you going to be patient and calm and kind? Because you can do whatever you do and experience yourself being frustrated. We do a lot of things in life, upset, frustrated, and mad. Like, I'm doing it, but I'm doing it with attitude. And that's not wrong either. I'm not having a right or wrong conversation. I'm saying is who you're going to be first. And we don't realize that we have a choice in who we get to be. And the first 40 years of my life, I didn't think I had a choice. It was just the way life was. It's just the way it is, and that's it. Most recently, I discovered that life isn't just the way it is. Life is also the way it isn't. And the moment that I chose life the way it is and the way it isn't, there was a space that showed up that I experienced being whole. There was a space where I experienced that I feel complete because I can choose life the way it is and I can choose life the way it isn't. I could choose loss the way it is and the way it isn't. I could choose grief the way it is and the way it isn't. I can choose being unwanted the way it is and the way it isn't. I could choose being loved the way it is and the way it isn't. And in choosing those areas of life that matter to me, choosing relationships the way they are and the way that they're not. In the moment that I chose loss and grief and being unwanted and being unloved and being loved, and I just started choosing the things that I resisted in life. I chose the government the way it is and the way it isn't. I chose my car the way it is and the way I chose my house the way it is and the way it isn't. I chose Farron the way it is and the way he isn't. And now, by choosing grief the way it is and the way it isn't, I found peace in my dad's passing. But I also chose being unwanted the way it is and the way it isn't. Because I could choose being wanted the way it is and the way it isn't. When I could choose that, instead of just choosing being wanted. Like, I'm just choosing being wanted, but I'm not going to choose being unwanted. Like, that doesn't complete the conversation. So you hear people say, oh, it is what it is. I say, yeah, it is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't. In the moment that I chose life the way it was and the way it wasn't, now I have life. It doesn't have me. And I'm saying that if you choose life the way it is and the way it isn't, if you choose upset the way it is and the way it isn't, if whatever that is, if you choose frustration the way it is and the way it isn't, then there's a space where you can see that frustration isn't as bad as you think it is. Because you're choosing it. And now it doesn't have you. You have it. And sometimes you have to know what you're holding on to before you can let it go. And that's not just stuff. That's also your emotions. That's also your feelings. If you know what you're holding on to, then you can let it go. And when I chose grief the way it is and the way it isn't, grief doesn't have me anymore. I have it. And I can choose to hold on to grief, or I could choose to let it go. I can choose being loved or not being loved. But I get to choose it. Love doesn't have me. Grief, loss. I choose fun or not choose fun the way it is and the way it isn't. And when you choose those, there's a space of peace. And I don't think the Israelites chose the wilderness the way it was and the way it wasn't. Because their heart was hardened. So what hardens your heart? If you're willing to do the work and you're willing to look and see, you can choose what hardens your heart and what doesn't harden your heart. I appreciate you for listening in. This is the Farron Dozier Show on KCA Radio 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Again, farrond.com for more information about what I'm up to in the community. WDCONSCT.org for sickle cell trait awareness, and the Inland Empire Hounds. We are 5-2. Your professional basketball team, the Inland Empire Hounds, are 5-2. We take on the Guy Levy Legends in San Diego next Sunday, the 28th. I don't know how I'm going to do that show. I might do that show from the side of the road in San Diego on my way back, because I may not make it back in time for 8 o'clock, because that game is at 5. All right, so IEHounds.com if you want to find out more about the team, if you want to support us. We're looking for brands and partnerships. We got bills to pay. We got things that we need to get accomplished. So if you like to brand with us, we definitely have a sponsorship package for you that you can brand with our team, again, and help us move some of these conversations forward around life. I'm not giving away toys. I'm not giving away stuff. We're giving away skills. And if you want to be a part of that conversation to nurture our children, provide skills and foundation skills that are missing in our culture, in our county, we have one conversation. All right, one more PSA. We're out of here. No, we got no time for that. All right, so I've talked through the whole thing. So, again, thanks for listening in. This is the Farron Dozier Show on KCAA Radio, 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Sickle Cell Trait Awareness. Shout us out.
Do you remember studying sickle cell in biology class? What's the Count on Sickle Cell Trait Prevention is here to bring you awareness, education, and prevention conversations around the risk factors of this inherited gene. Visit WDCONSCT.org.
CAA.